Person pushed me aside and zoomed off. So I thought they were the high-killers. Then after about 500 meters, from compound, the way compound is 500 meters to that toll gate, and that vehicle was waiting, the transfer and that vehicle then zoomed off. So it was on our way. One of the others we are from the SSS. So I now relaxed. Hey, that's what you have said now. So I was relaxed. That's what you have said now. So I was now more, composed. That okay, no, it's not the people that sent the message. So when we got there, and they were returning their guns, bullets, and stuff like that, I was just wondering. So just because of me, innocent me, that all these guns and bullets are listening. So I was put in a solitary confinement. Then immediately my brain started doing some walking overdrive, and because I had written a pamphlet, Detention Banner for Journalists, so how you can survive detention, how you can do this one and things like that. So immediately I put everything into practice. I struck acquaintance with one of them. I said, "Boy, come, let's do business." I'll give you a note, go to my office, go to my house. In the office, they thought I had gone home. I told me, I was in the office, nobody knew where I was. Go to the office, collect the amount of money, we share it, good deal, and I agreed. Go to the office, collect the money. If I have money, we did session. So they brought the money, we shared 50-50, and that's how I began to have good rapport with them. So after some time, after the organs had gone home, they would open me up in the night to go to the car park. So I would give them money, go to Balade, buy suya, and go. We all get together and start gisting. And I asked them, after I was now in very friendly with them, why didn't you invite me as you had?
He said they wanted it to go wrong. And I was talking and talking to others. That's what I wanted to do. My first thing was that I thought the way. But before I could do that, I had to talk together, they are doing this like that. So, and it was because of the violence mother, I exposed them on the mother of my wife. After the violence, who was like a little people. The wife exposed them and gave more details to us. Because I had been in the house about 2 months before it was built. We had a meeting there in the house. Then, of course, when I now follow up on the case, I now publish all the details of how and now wanted to know who gave me, and that if I knew that much, then I was not going to alive. So, but fortunately, I was alive, and I was going to enjoy my attention. Good. And then the lesson because for the money, but they wanted to, and interestingly, not very that criminal. They knew they were supposed to, they not told me, because that was from formality, to go to the director and stuff like that, and formality. So, and it was an offense if they saw me with money. So, not to me, it's like they're not doing tomorrow. That after that about it, I was going to go straight. The director I want to go and pray. I should go back to myself. I said I want to go and pray. Because so I said so they told me where to see the money. In the cell, all the cracks. So what they have to pray. Because of the level of impunity, disobedience to God order, and it's like nobody bothers, nobody cares. And I recall that under IBP in Sierra Leone, which was on all the disobedience to God order, and I think and then we go now on all the various disobedience to God order by this government and by the government. I tell you what I said, to go to the IT. The policy, I mean, that why there was, I'm not sure the IT has given supply to the duties direction. So the thing won't come and come, and that's why we can't continue to do that. Because all the responsibilities are going under the supposed government. It's hard. And that's why I think the best to compile all the government on bills, the for that in this resolution. So unfortunately that we have Detention. I mean, that is, I'm trying to be careful. I don't want to break it down, but we kind of have to Nigeria, you understand? You might get. So I thought we have had it before in Antwerp. Antwerp was the HG under there as well. But Malami has even broken the record of Antwerp in terms of how that office has brought so low. So what I think we need to encourage ourselves, irrespective of what happens, that because we cannot afford to be dishonest. Yes, sometimes, I mean, because of the enormity of what the role that tendency to also feel so dishonest, but I don't think we can just call it well. We have to keep on pushing on and see how we can effect whatever we can do. Because what I would like to talk about, the political class still remains the same. Election is not how many months is away, because I think with the new electoral act by August next year, we don't know the new attitude of the new party. So if continue the way we are in the same group of people in charge. And I have tried as much as possible to find a way to do some behind the scenes intervention. So, and I know that, yes, sometimes the spirit is willing, but the system is not. The system is not. So I recall that the people after the EndSARS, there was one lady, I don't know what the EndSARS guy is doing, and who passport was killed. I can't remember the name now, but she was about to travel out and her passport was killed. And I recall that the people was on her case to get the passport released. And because of the case the almost like a supporting individual that was one that promoter of EndSARS, blah, 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 blah. So the system is terrible. So, but we can't just give up. We try as much as possible through various means, conventional, unconventional, and any way to make sure that we can't just give up. Otherwise, we are in this case to give up. Everybody will look up to us, and we can't continue to throw up our hands and the surrender as well. The political class is going to drive us out. God forbid. I think we shall continue to engage like this program and other programs, different programs. Let's engage. So I will keep the government rules and ways that if Babangida is not succeed, if Babangida is not succeed, then this thing about will not succeed. Okay.
Thank you very much, Mr. Richard. Much more than that. Can we give him a robust round of applause? I don't know about you, but now I know there's a detention manual for journalism. I told he's an author of 17 books and counting, and he's written a memoir about his detention in that little dark day of journalism in Nigeria. Thank you very much for your speech. I'd like to call on our very next speaker quickly, but I'd like to acknowledge the presence of the chairman of the occasion, Professor of Political Economy, Professor Patrick Tobin. Shall we give him a round of applause? Our next speaker is an academic. She's an advocate. The former student union leader. We call her the general. She's called Triple A. She's a researcher. She's a founding director. Women Advocate Research and Documentation Center. Please be welcome. Diola Akobe Akolabi. The General. Thank you very much,
I don't want to sing there. I would have sang a song, a solidarity song, but there are different types of comrades. But there are some comrades that they are comrades. Comrade Father, you are a comrade. Thank you very much. Thank you for the inspiration and thank you for everything. Comrade Father is also there, my very old brother. Thank you so much, Comrade Father, for the inspiration that you have given us. Well, I sit here in 1986. I think I was in my final year in the secondary school. Then we used to have 5 years and not 6. So it wasn't the GSS 3 or SS 3-1. And so I can recall that something happened and something terrible happened to us as a country. And I think before then, the school I went to is not a popular social grammar school. And in Osun State, it was the state capital. But since when we were in about the 3rd year in school, we've been part of this literary and debating society. And for me, if I became an activist later on, was that foundation that we had at that time. So around 1983, 82, 84, there were a lot of issues against journalists, and we were being asked to debate about the state of the nation. So we're given different topics to talk about. And I think one of the topics that were given was around yellow journalism. You will be wondering what the Form 3 students, know about yellow journalism and all of that. So that helped us really to go and find out what was happening and give us a whole lot of information about what was happening to journalists and the reason for Nigerians to support journalists at that point in time. And for me, I think that was where I started developing my activism from. I recall that before I graduated, I've had like 1 or 2 episodes on campus. One led to my early exposure at my 4th year in school. And of course, my father came and we came to battles and we came back to school. So by the time I got to Buffalo University then, it was obvious that I had a path to follow. And I am very glad that I can proudly say that about 2 decades after, Comrade Falana was the PR of the Students' Union, that I became the first female public relations officer of that Students' Union, coming after my So standing here is not by accident. And if you recall what the Students' Union was then, it was a determinant factor for whatever happens in the society. So we're taking a lot of risk. I haven't been jailed, but I've been detained. I don't know what that is, a real difference between being detained and being jailed. Maybe. There must be, but I've been detained severally. And of course, we have taken several steps at that time. And I can remember, during the whole IPB goal, we were called upon in our different schools. And good enough, my brother is here, my name is here. We were at the same time. He was the president of Lagos State University, So we're asked to go around come and ensure that we do, when asked, we decided, to go around and ensure that we do what is possible to ensure that IDB must go at all costs. And I recall that I was asked to go to Benin to paste posters in the night, and we had like about 1,000 posters to paste, and it must be done within the night, so that when people wake up in the morning, and when Professor was talking about different kind of protests, I could recall that was supposed to be a protest. People were supposed to wake up in the morning and see posters all across Nigeria saying, "Go IDB, go." And we were part of that process. So for me, I sit here, I crossed 50 last year, and I asked myself, when I try to reflect on Nigeria, I asked myself several things. Have we been able to achieve what we stood for at that point, at that time? Is it going to really happen? Are we on the right course? And for me, I think that's where my conversation here today. Talking about the lessons from EndSARS. And it's good that Congress has told us that we all have rights to assemble. It's constitutional rights. There are jurisprudence in that regard. So nobody should deny us our ability to gather together. After all, we know that who plotting is never learned at NDA. It's never like there's no cost like who plotting. But every day, generals come, generals go, and what do? They do their who plotting. So meaning that this is also a space for us to redetermine and interrogate our state called Nigeria. And that's why we commend Comrade Chido for putting this together. It's very important. It's very, very important, especially on the 19th of October, because there are a lot of things we need to reflect on. Now, I'll just say quickly before issues about the lessons from EndSARS. One of the things that the EndSARS showed to us is the potential of the youth. The fact that we have a whole lot of a group of people who has very good potential to remake Nigeria, to rebuild Nigeria. And by coming out at that time to show that, to protest in that regard, in a very organized way, in a very, very organized way, in a way that even the government never thought, something that they never thought would happen, So show that potential in the youth that we have, and it's important so that we don't downplay it. Because every time we talk about how people are ready to leave the country, don't deceive yourself. The truth of the matter is that out of the 5 million of you, I don't know whether you get about 5% that will be able to go anywhere. So it's better we deal with the situation, together and solve the problem. Because I really have nowhere to go. Even if you go, when you get there, you know that you want to come back. Because it's not your home, it's not your place. So the potential of the youth, we need to explore it in a way, that would, satisfy, the needs of the nation. The second issue is that we also realized that I was reading the Recounts Nigeria, and I was reading about the chapter that was wrote by Dr. Kayode Fayemi, and I was talking about elite consciousness and our consensus, elite consensus. And I was thinking in my mind, I said, which elite consensus? Where has that gotten us to? Where has that gotten us to? And that's why I think that for us, I think that's why we need to learn, from the young people, because it looks like we are gotten to a sit-down-and-look situation where, we are just rocking the boat. We are not determining anything. We are just following the order that we see. So we are being reactive instead of being proactive. So I'm very worried about the consensus of the elites, because that's actually not really done much, for us as a country. Invest in the young people, to be able to liberate Nigeria. I know that there is a lot we can do. There are issues that are systemic, there are issues of structures. And I kept saying you cannot put something on nothing. Even if we have 20 vice presidents, I was saying some people saying about the CV of the Vice President of Houston to tell us how strong he is, educated, and all of that. If you put such a person in a system that is as corrupt as we are, is a system that cannot be changed, let us wasting your time. It will take time. And that's why when it was going, a lot of people had a lot of hopes, but when it got there, it became very difficult for him, to be able to change everything. So we need to look at it from that angle, that we have a system that is very decayed, we have a structure that is very decayed, and the only thing we can do is to overhaul that system, overhaul that structure. If we don't do it, we keep talking and talking and talking. And I think that so we need to then move from where we are, to a situation of action. So to try as much as possible what we can do in terms of empowering citizens. Any opportunity that we see, any opportunity that we get, whether you want to speak with young people or you want to speak with women, which is my constituency, is to try as much as possible to see how we can ensure that we explore that opportunity to empower citizens. Recently, we started what we call Secure Nigeria. It's called #Secure Nigeria, and it's a group of women who gather together. And I want to tell you, without really having much money, we have been able to go across the country to mobilize people, to protest at different times, market women, gather together, people talk together, and you hear what people say, that you can know that Nigerians are really very tired, and people want to be secure, because we can't have a country where there is insecurity. And as I was saying in one of the meetings of recent, I think Professor Patton was there, I agree with you, sir. At that meeting, where they had the 50th birthday of the former ECP chairperson, we were complaining about insecurity, but we all know that the Boko Haram today is a reflection of the inequality in the society. And so if we see what is happening in IPOP, we see what is happening in we should understand that a society that does not care for its people would have as many crises as possible. We have just started. If we don't try to resolve the problem by overhauling the system, by transforming the society, by ensuring that we develop empowered citizens who can stand up against the oppressive regime that we have today, we will not be able to resolve the problem of Nigeria. We can only make Nigeria by ourselves, by our people, empowered to fight, empowered to protest, empowered to transform Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Let's keep the applause going. Let's keep the applause going. She is the traditional chief, the convener of Women in Pesco, and the former chairperson of the transition. A man totally sold out the capacity building for journalists. Just yesterday I read his press release about the missing Vanguard reporter in Abuja, asking the police to intensify efforts to find him. He's a journalist, of course, and author of a book. He's the executive director, International Press Center, Lagos. Please make welcome Mr. Larry Arundade. Comrade, Amita Continua.
If you say I'm coming down, what will you say to Femi Falana? Thank you very much. I know time is far spent, but I just hope I'll be able to make a few points. There's a tendency to think that we talk too much in Nigeria. So we're here last Monday, or last week Monday, so as part of Fela debates, and one of the speakers was Shehu Kuti. And some of the commentators were saying, oh, we're talking too much. So Shehu Kuti's response now said, well, talking itself is action. It's an action. And if you don't believe him, somebody should just walk out of this place, go straight to a policeman where he's standing, point to the face of a policeman and say, you decrease. The reaction will show you that talking is an action. So I commend the organizers of this program, and I'm also glad that 35 years on, we're remembering Nelegiwa and we're discussing another phenomenon. As a matter of fact, when Chido first posted on the platform that a book will be published to encourage documentation around Nelegiwa, which is commendable. I mean, we have the remaking of Nigeria, 60 years, 60 voices. Coincidentally, when I was chairman of the Lagos State Council of Nigerian Union of Journalists, we in 1996 actually marked 10 years of Nelegiwa's exist with the publication of this book, which was dedicated to him then. It's called Journalism in Nigeria, Issues and Perspectives, which deals extensively with the problems. So if we are talking of journalism, those issues have to be captured. I'm told I have 8 minutes. That's the price to pay for being the last speaker. But I will just make some quick points. First is that I think it's remarkable and of historic significance that the 1 year anniversary of EndSARS has coincided with the 35th anniversary of the brutal killing of Nelegiwa. Nelegiwa was the founding editor of the Newswatch magazine. He was editor of the Sunday Concord. I'm just giving all this information because of the younger generation here. He was actually a celebrated columnist, and I think he still touched the mind of Nigerians because of the kind of social issues that he was raising. But I'm making a point here that both the killing of Nelegiwa and the attack, especially at Lekki Toll Gates, were massacres. But we have had all this debate, it's not massacre, they did not kill 200 people. Where are the people that were killed? Or an instance of killing a number of usually helpless or unresisting human beings under circumstances of atrocity or cruelty. That is the first one. The killing of a number. He didn't say 100, 200, 300. But the second definition is that a massacre is cruelty or a wanton murder. So Nelegiwa was massacred just as those Nigerian youths were massacred at Lekki Toll Gates, and nobody will ever change that fact. And you know, history we deal with, we're in the age of science, we're in the age of information. I'm sure that sooner than later there will be more facts about the killings in Lekki. So it's all about 150 press freedom violations between 2016 and 2020. So the challenge facing the media is enormous. But the good thing is that despite all this, we continue to do our best, and the media was there to report EndSARS. And what happened? The media was indeed attacked by two sets of hoodlums. Hoodlums in government who ordered soldiers to open fire on defenseless youths at Lekki Toll Gate, and the other hoodlums on the streets which they normally arm, which had actually attacked the protesters before things changed for the worse. And we do know that there was an acid attack on TVC and the rest of them. The point I'm making is that there's a connection between EndSARS and the struggle of the media and the issue of press freedom. And if we look back actually to the EndSARS properly, I think we can describe what happened then as the 12 days that shook Nigeria. Because the protest started on October 8th and ended on October 20th. We cannot say that the size of participation in the EndSARS was comparable to maybe the June 12, the anti-fuel crisis of 2012. But I think in terms of its effects, in terms of sharing the conscience of the nation, the EndSARS protest was comparable to the anti-fuel protest of January 2012, and of course, the June 12 movement. I'd like to make this point here quickly as I move to the 5th minute of my 8 minutes. I won't thank you back. Don't worry, I'm using the socialist method of thanking you. Is that for me, because we have this debate in the country, the president said the youth were lazy. People will rather use this tool, they are not interested in anything, they are on social media. They vote and live in Nigeria, they don't vote any other thing. But the youth saw injustice and decided to protest that injustice in their own way. So for me, I think it marked the entrance of a new generation of youth into the arena of struggle. There is no time in the history of Nigeria that youths are not involved in the struggle for better Nigeria. Please get that all right. There is no time. Some of the things when they tell you that Nigerian was this, Nigerian was as president, I was 21 years old. The youth were talking about a lot of young people participated in it. So to think that youths are totally apolitical is a falsification of history. And that should not be accepted. Even our oppressors are young people. The one was 29 years old when he became head of state. Our Obasanjo probably was about 30 something. So what are we saying? So I think that, and on that note, it's unfortunate that the youth were not allowed to fully express themselves with the way government reacted. But also there are also lessons from that struggle. And I think the lesson there too, and it happens, there's no way when young people, even when you have the best of organization, there are no perfect struggles anyway. Mistakes are bound to be made. And we should not criminalize the EndSARS movement on the basis of some of those mistakes. I just mentioned that when some at our own period we were in announced leadership, I'll just give you an example of what happened then. Government had announced that they were going to increase tuition fees in the universities and that free education was not possible. So we said we were back on an indefinite boycott of classes because of those pronouncements by the then Buhari regime. And we started the protest, the boycott of classes, universities were being shut down. Halfway into that struggle, the Minister of Education then announced that tuition fees will no longer be increased in the universities. But the more a struggle gets popular, the more youth feel, oh yes, we have the power, we can go away. And we continued until when a group of senior comrades now came to meet us at Tiffany and said, what are you people thinking? You think you can just continue to indefinitely, that once the government had said they were no longer increase tuition fees, call up the action and live to fight another day. So it happens. There's no generation where you don't make mistakes. Oh, we said 2012 was wonderful. The 2012 protest. Didn't we obstruct people's means of livelihood during those struggles? That is the reality. So we should not criminalize that movement. But there were also mistakes, definitely. And I hope that they will learn from that. Struggles have to be weighed according to your forces. Because when you don't control and you don't control the state, there's no way you can just continue forever. And for me, this leads to the question of what are the key lessons of June 12? of EndSARS in the quest to remake Nigeria. But that is really the challenge, really. Because if Nigeria had been remade, if we didn't have police brutality, if we didn't have killings by EndSARS, that wouldn't have been EndSARS movement. So EndSARS movement itself was, a reaction to a development. It was the effect of a particular cause, and those causes, are still particularly there. And for me, I would think that definitely we need the youth to move to the arena of struggle. We need alternative, I call it alternative political narratives, because we talk about the need for alternatives, alternative political platform. But I think first and foremost, we need alternative political narratives. And just as I said that youth have always been involved, in the struggles of Nigerian people, we also need to make the point that Nigeria has not always faced bad governance. We need to make that point, and we can look at the past and draw the example that we need to build a new political movement, because it's from those narratives that we can decide on the alternative that we are putting forward to the people that will make a difference. If you are campaigning now, and I was a politician at the time, in 2003, we were in the National Conscience Party of Chief Gani. I ran for Senate, Lagos West. I did not win and I did not lose. Because Dokubu Afikulamu won under age then. That time the politics was there, so he had 300,000 votes. The PDP woman who came second had 220,000 votes, and I came top with 77,000 votes. That means I won the bronze medal at that election. But the point I also want to make there is that if Nigeria were to be running a proportional representative system, like they do in some parts of Europe, what it meant is that the National Conscience Party would would have formed a third of the government in Lagos State in 2003. Correct. Because we came third in all elections in Lagos State, and Richard Akinola ran for House of Reps, and it was there at the Collation Center. He didn't know what politics was. One of our friends, I will say son, a top leader of APC, led armed policemen to the place. And that is also one of the reasons why we are successfully fought for electronic transmission, of results. And that happened then, But then, we can also look at this Lagos State. What am I talking about? We have had a situation where people have been in government in Nigeria, spent 4 years and 3 months in government before the military struck in December 83, and came out and went to live in the same houses they were living when they were elected. So for the younger generation here, in those states, we used to have somebody called Chief Adekunle Ajasi. He was a school principal. He was a retired school principal, as at the time he became the governor of those states. And in his memoir, which is documented, he said when he was going to government house, one of his friends, who was a retired principal, came to him and said, "You are now a governor. Can you please let me be using one of your 2 cars?" Said he gave the friend the car. And he took that car. It was that car that he was using. He was leaving his own personal house as governor. When Shehu Shagari was to visit Ondo State as president, they now told him that you need to renovate this your house. He resisted. He said you don't need. They now told him that even the number of chairs you have cannot even seat the guests that you are expecting. He reluctantly agreed. After Shagari's visit, the state government wanted to refund the money. He rejected it and said, "Look, it is my own house that you have renovated. I will continue to live there. Why should government money be used for that renovation?" In his memoir, he also said that he did not increase his wardrobe. But back to the cars, I just seen them government and said by the time he left as governor, the only car he had broken down. So after being governor, he now went to the friend and said, "My friend, return my car that I gave you." That one told him, said, "No, that one too has broken down." So as former governor, I just didn't have a car. We now can give an example quickly of Ambrose Ali. Ambrose Ali was governor of the old Benue region, which is now made up of Edo and Delta states. After he had left office, he was a professor of anatomy. And I remember that the National Party of Nigeria, the opposition party of UPN, they used to abuse him that he didn't know anything about government because he was used to dealing with dead bodies. He became ill after his governorship, terribly ill, and couldn't raise money for his treatment. His political opponents, led by Ogbemudia, and you can search in the media, these things were reported, now came out and said, "Look, now we believe that this man did not steal money in government because he doesn't even have money." It was his political opponent that raised money for his treatment until invariably he died. Of course, we are in Lagos. Jackmondays Lagos. Yeah. And the point I'm going to make here leads to the future we are trying to build. A future where government needs to invest in the people. All the housing estates you see around Lagos, Jackmonday, were built through direct labor
for the people
by workers of Lagos State and at affordable prices for the people on the basis of first come, first serve. In some of those estates, the drainages there are over 30 years old and they are better than the drainages that are being built now. So when you look at our society, where is the money going? The money goes because everything has been reduced to a contractual system. We don't believe in our people. And that is why you have a lot of waste. So the point I'm making finally is that when we talk of an alternative political party, we need to build it on those kind of foundations. A party, like we try to build the National Conscience Party, whose candidates, not, I won't say swear to an oath, but will sign a memorandum of the kind of conduct they expect from their elected leaders when they get into office. All of us, as candidates of National Conscience Party, including Femi Falana here, who was our governorship candidate in Ondo State, by the Ekiti State, by the way, we won a seat, I think the House of Assembly seat.
AD had one too.
AD had one too. Everett was our governorship candidate in Ekiti State. Richard, well, after our convention, we all signed a memorandum where it was stated that if any one of us got elected, that if you were a councillor and you got elected on the platform of the National Conscience Party, you will continue to live where you were living until the end of your tenure. So now that you are a councillor elected in Sowore, and the next day you are living in Lekki because you have made money. We also sign that if we are alleged of any corrupt practices, the political party will deal, with us. If we are going to build a new Nigeria, I feel that those are the key premises that we need to look at, so that even before you get into government, you are committing to accountability. Accountability to your political party ultimately translates to accountability, to the people. I hope that all of us in our respective areas of endeavor would agree that if we follow this path, another Nigeria is possible, just as another Nigeria had been possible in the past. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Another Nigeria is possible. Another Nigeria is possible. Thank you so much, the Executive Director, International Press Center, IPC, Mr. Larry Arobudade. Can we appreciate him much more? He became NAN's president at 21 years old. The story of Nigeria and activism in Nigeria and Nigerian journalism and even the Nigerian governance in Nigeria has it that the young led at some point. We should return to that place where we don't see our young ones as these Nigerian youths. Thank you very much again. At this juncture, I'd like us to do something. I'd like us to all be upstanding and observe a minute's silence for the soul of the late journalist, Billy Moore. His gentle soul rest in peace. And may the killers be found one day. Right, at this juncture, I'd like to call on a well-respected Nigerian, a former presidential aspirant, and a revered professor of political economy. Please let's make welcome the chairman of the occasion, Professor Patutobi. Please let's appreciate him as he makes his way. The host of the long-running People's Gang, we are back.
Thank you very much. And we are back. Okay. What an interesting day for memories. Asian building comes off the back of history. And so what a delight to be part of recalling of a remarkable history. 60 years, 60 voices. I've had good fortune because I've been around through almost all of that history. And I've had the privilege of being active most of it. Let me perhaps begin by paying tribute to journalists in Nigeria. I think that we haven't written enough or said enough about the sacrifices made by journalists in the building of this nation. Even through the colonial struggle, many of our nationalists were journalists. They include the String, the Jack One Days, of course, Sowore himself, all, Juvenile, these are journalists. And I think that journalism will reclaim its place. We remember Lily Giwa today. Interestingly, I met Lily Giwa not in Nigeria. I went somewhere in 1979, I think, in New York. And Lily Giwa where I had just read something a couple of news feature articles, as we used to call them in those days, that are written in one of the most respected papers in America. And I saw how our country reacted to the way that he was murdered. But I think that my main comments today belong to the domain of the moment, young people, the students' movements in Nigeria. A couple of years ago, short years ago, I came to somewhere not too far from here to visit with General Lani Akiniade. Macron had just been elected president of France. He was 39 years old at the time. The young people in Nigeria were, complaining that, they don't get a chance. Look at a 39-year-old becoming president of France, Nigeria, they're shut out and all of that. So, as I entered the Nigerian, they said, we all have a share in the blame for why leadership is poor in Nigeria. He said, if you check all these 20-something, 30-something-year-olds who are popping up and taking over across Europe, they started out in the student union movement. They were groomed as teenagers in the student union movement. But we, in our country, we soldiers, politicians, we killed the student union movement and denied the next generation a chance to be leaders. It was a remarkable conclusion. Because most of us, I look at those who are here, cut our teeth in the student union movement. I have told many times the story of my 18th birthday, which I did not remember. And why did I not remember my 18th birthday? There was a tradition of protesting wrong in this country. A student at the University of Ibadan, had been killed by a police bullet. And every year at the anniversary of that, students were up in arms around the country. And by January of 1974, every university in Nigeria had been shut down as a result of an Igbeju protest, except the one that I was in, the University of Nigeria. Most of us who remember those days, there were already 5 universities in the country. Uniben was still preparing, was still Midwest Institute of Technology. So APU was shot, Ife was shot, Lagos was shot, Ibadan was shot, University of Nigeria. And some of us said this cannot happen. We must do something about that kind of thing. We tried to remove the student union leadership. They bounced us. So we created our own student union. So we started the Students Democratic Society, SDS. And our leader was Basi Eko Basi. Remember Basi? So we were serious planning on the 4th and 5th of February. And on the 6th of February at 5 a.m. we all gathered. We all we're going to touch something on us or something. We all gathered in black and decided to start marching around the campus, singing. Some students who had lost 3 years during the Civil War, who were still there, who opened their window. Stupid boys, go and sleep. But we insisted and we continued the march. Our aim was to go to the gates, set some fire and all of that, and let the world know that there are students here who disagree with what is going on. And then there was one professional undergraduate at that time in Nigeria. I think that was his 13th year as an undergraduate. Yeah, the ABU moved to UI. His name was Pinnick, Chairman P. Chairman P suddenly got up from his room, saw what we were doing, put on his photo and ran. Yes, boys, let's move. Chairman P said, we're going to the gate. He said, no, let's go to the VC's house. VC's house. What has VC got to do with this? As we showed up, the brother of Professor Convenier's house, Pinnick said we should wait. Let the man consult with the VC. While we were waiting, the VC's English wife came out and offered us tea. Anyway, we eventually secured Professor Convenier's agreement that we should have a campus-wide rally. Everybody should get together. So, the rally was scheduled for 7 p.m. at the Soworebreakable refectory hall. So, during the day from there, we're going from door to door, room to room, trying to mobilize students about why we must do this. Then we finally gathered around 7 p.m. About 8 something, after 8, Pinnick got up to speak. He said, today, the 6th of February, 1974, we will remember as the day when the people in this part who were physically demobilized after the war were finally mentally demobilized. Everybody! And I said, wait a minute, it's a birthday. Until 20 something, whatever it was that day, I didn't remember it was my 18th birthday. Now, I tell this story to talk about passion. And why is this passion important in our looking at young people? You know the saying that if at 18 you are not a Marxist, something is wrong with your heart. But if at 40 you are still a Marxist, something is wrong with your head.
I protest.
Are you still a Marxist? I tell you, there was a famous Time magazine cover story during the protests in Europe, 1968, 69. My days in the other college in Ibadan. I used to read Time magazine cover to cover from to every, and there's a particular episode of Time magazine that I never forget. I was still in maybe like only for 3 or something. It goes, Marx is dead, Christ is dead, and I am not feeling too well myself. This essentially spoke to the death of ideology in the world. And everybody was tired, everybody was exhausted. And so, the point is that the young people are the ones who make change happen in most societies. Why is this so? A variety of reasons. First of all, the passion and the idealism of youth is critical for human progress. Second, as young people, they typically, you take out the Jonathan or 1 or 2 people, but as young people, they don't have the fear of school fees to pay. When you are 54, and you are thinking of the children's school fees in a few weeks, it's harder to make a decision about what else than when you are 18 and there is nobody working. But what it is that we must then develop strategies that can move us from 18-year-olds who are ready to do as quickly to mature revolutionaries who can change the society with careful planning. I set up in 2004 the Center for Values in Leadership for a very simple reason. I believe that every generation has a duty to make their shoulders available for the next generation to stand up so they can see tomorrow work there. And that was part of our effort to groom the next generation in leadership. One of the tragedies of the Nigerian condition is that we've turned the whole idea of democracy upside down. Democracy is supposed to be people holding governments accountable. If you want to mature into the boardroom and use the language of corporate governance, when the owners of the business find agents to execute for them, they must have instruments for holding those agents accountable for the assignment to send them on. It's only the kind of democracy we run here that people fear federal government fearing the people. Until we can make governments fear the people, we don't have a democracy. The people must set course. And this is why what we need is to build citizenship, citizens. People who have a passion for a shared humanity. As the Greeks used to say, at the bottom of society's ladder are idiots. Idiots are just people who care just about themselves. At the next level, we have tribalists. People who care about people who share certain affinity, blood or something, or language. And the tribalists, everybody who does not share in that their parochial base is an enemy. So tribal wars are permanent. But if they move up and become citizens, a shared humanity drives them to do things that advance the common good of all. This is why the EndSARS protests, for me, marked the arrival of citizenship in Nigeria. I was all dressed up with my EndSARS t-shirt. And as it happens, from my house, you can literally see the toll gate. If you know my house, you know, and I have a deck at the top. From just from on my deck, you just be looking at the toll gate. And I was up there that evening. And I heard this siren. He was just coming. I said, who is this egocentric maniac who is blowing siren on this day where the streets are deserted? And the sirens were coming up Uzuma Bali were coming. And then suddenly, gunfire exploded. I said, no, they can't be shooting the students. They can't. I grabbed my phone, trying to call the governor. I told my wife to start calling the deputy governor. Immediately, I called channels. I said, John, you know they're shooting these kids? And John called the station and they called me and I went immediately live. We owe a great tribute to smart youth of this country that organized last year. They proved that citizenship can come to this land. I was sad to know that it stopped. The killing was terrible, but they could have continued on social media and run characters out of town. What we need to do is learn to organize. And what we must do now is convert all these young people to community organizers. And they say, you need 10 years to plan. This thing here is so fragile, you can remove them in 6 months. 6 months can remove this guy. Everybody in the year is fed up. Just imagine that on social media, look at the statistics. How many young people are there in this country? How many people are voting in this country? We just take 40% of young people who are eligible to vote and organize the way the youth of Kano organized to get Shekarau, a civil servant who was embarrassed by the serving governor, had no naira in his pocket, and in a few months build up the momentum such that they could police all the materials coming from INEC, ensure that voting took place now, even though his party didn't want him, and the ruling party did not want the result to come out. there was no choice because the youth of Kano said no way, and they beat the incumbent with 400,000 votes. If youth of Nigeria organize, they can make this current order ancient history very easy. And I want to challenge you all to try and do that. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. We must turn our youth to organizers, community organizers. Thank you very much, Provost. Please can we appreciate him? I'm going to detain you here. And have you move towards the books over there. We've come to that point where we do the book presentation. So I'm going to ask Mr. Chidoluma to join the chairman of the occasion here, all the speakers. Let me let you know that immediately after the book presentation, we'll go to the panel session. And we're going to be real quick about it. Just about 25 minutes we're done. And then we can ask all the questions we have, listening to all the speakers we've heard today. So, Mr. Chidoluma there, Prof there, all the speakers, please. The keynote speakers, sir. Mr. Perry Malamo, Senior Advocate of Nigeria, Ms. Afolabi, Mr. Richard Akinola, where is Mr. Larry? All the contributors here present. Tomotola, I read your piece, please come over. All the contributors to the book being presented to the public today. Motola's piece is quite interesting. You talked about the windfall of the Gulf War. What happened to all the money? She talked about her irresponsible father, because the father is Nigerian. Contributors here in the hall, can you please join? All contributors, please join. All the speakers, are we complete? Mr. Lamia, all the panelists, please. Moturaya Alaka, Vector here, please. All the panelists as well, Hidayat Azan, please join. All the panelists, please. All the panelists. All the panelists, speakers, keynote speaker, and Prof, I'm going to pass you a microphone.
There is plenty of wisdom and most powerful history in the volumes covered by this. Harry. Okay, I thought you were starting another revolution. No hands. Yes, sir. And we will implore the extension of hands of those who are close enough. You can reach out, over here. And so we'll raise this gradually, systematically, in tribute to the triumph of the Nigerian people. The triumph of the Nigerian people. That precede this effort. I think there's a tradition of everybody holding up a copy. How are we going to do this without bringing down this beautiful castle? Put us up here. Okay. So we'll just get some that we can hold. All right.
There you go. Compendium of essays, brilliant essays actually.
So, ignorance is not with one anymore. Because you can sing a narrative forever. Solidarity forever.
Thank you very much. There it is. The book has been presented to the public. Tito, how much is the book? Let me just ask all the panelists to stay back and please take a seat. All the panelists, please, Mrs. Soworebreakable, please come and have your seat. You wrote about public accountability. Public law.
I wrote about using public interest litigation.
That's the one I was about reading. Please, yes. All the panel, we'll do the panel session for just about 25 minutes, and then we'll take questions and answers from all the speakers. I love your piece. Well done. Right, let's do this quickly. To buy the book, the hardcover is 5,000 naira. The paperback is 3,000 naira. Do we all have microphones? Do we all have microphones? Is there one? Okay, I'll give you this. So you can share audio room, we need one more microphone. Right, so please get your questions ready, because after the panel session we're going to take the Q&A, and you can ask all the questions you have for all the other speakers we've listened to so far. So our speakers, our panelists are seated, and I'm just going to start in no particular order. We have next to me the ED CEO, Wole Soyinka Investigative Center for Journalism, Mrs. Motunrayo here. Can we give her a round of applause? Next is the controversial lawyer whose story we heard some weeks back, Madam Idaya Hassan. A round of applause for her. She was the one who attended during Lauren. Rashida Hassan. Adeshino. I better look at my notes now. Rashida Adeshino, it's good to have you here. We can't wait to hear your story. Please welcome. Rashida Adeshino. We also have Femi Adeyeye here. There you go. Unilag has got an interesting story to tell as well. And then we have the musician, Vector. Yes, let's appreciate him properly. You were part of the EndSARS protest. We can't wait to hear your experience as well. And finally, the lawyer, Inibiehe Effiong. Welcome. So let's quickly touch on your views about the 35 years of the unresolved murder of Delegiwa. We're going to be really quick about it. I'll start with you, because you are nearest to me, of course. Motunrayo, what's your view of these 35 years of unresolved murder?
Good afternoon. Good afternoon. And it's good to be here. I recognize everyone. I was reading again the story of Delegiwa's death this morning, and then it was clear to me that I was asking myself, what has changed? What has changed in Nigeria? Because the story was told of how a number of editors were called to a meeting and asked to, and were censored practically just before he was killed. And they were told that there were some things that they could not cover, and they couldn't report some things. And they said they agreed to it. You know, when somebody has a gun and the military government and they call you to a meeting about censorship, and you are told that you agreed to it. What were the options in that room then? So I was asking myself, what really has changed about what we have now? because editors are still being called, and they're still getting circulars from government authorities telling them what they can cover and what they cannot cover. We still have government, talking about hate speech as, talking about our freedom of expression as hate speech, and censoring what people say. And when you censor with force, when you kill one, you silence many, because it's a clear demonstration of what their faith can also be. And that's why such a day as this is important. I really applaud the media for keeping Delegiwa in focus for 35 years, because getting justice for one means that we can get our voices back somehow. And repeating that we are going to see through follow-up journalism, being able to keep talking about something until we see change. I appreciate people like All Rush report until something happens, until we see change. So 35 years is a long time, but at least a new generation now knows more about the fact that one of the stories that were going around during the EndSARS protest was the fact that the old generation were too silent, they were docile, and I was like, where did these people get their history from? Okay, so we do need the press. Self-censorship, I have found in my 15 years of working in the media that press self-censorship is the biggest issue. And self-censorship happens because the powers that be have already demonstrated, for instance, the killing of one of you, that they are not going to be easy on you if you do not do as they wish. And so you end up silencing so much. But I again applaud the media for keeping up, even at this time. We have military people in civilian uniform down to my mind.
Okay, let me stop you there so that we can go around. We have quite a number of panelists. Let me come to you, Imi. Is it okay to call you Imi? Imi Omsaigo Imi Bie. Okay, Imi is fine. You're a lawyer. We just heard from the lawyers present, experienced senior advocate of Nigeria, Mr. Richard Akinola. There are 248 times that the late Ghanaian family appeared in court on behalf of Delegiwa. What's your take about that? Do you think we could ever find justice for this journalist?
Thank you for the opportunity. My position is that the reason why the killers of Delegiwa has not been brought to justice, despite the historic contribution of the late Chief Jennifer, it's because Nigeria is a crime state. Nigeria is a crime scene. And you see, in an environment where crime is an official policy of state, it becomes difficult to have a conversation surrounding justice. The ideology of the ruling class in this country is built on criminality. And that is the reason why we talk, we protest, and there appears to be no response. Will the killers of Delegiwa ever be brought to justice? It is neither here nor there. Because if we were to have the power as civil society, the names that have been mentioned, we would have had them out by now. But when you have a country where you cannot even assume political party except you are either a criminal or you are supported by criminals, it becomes difficult to have crime punished, especially crime where a former head of state has been connected with. So my position is that for some reason, look at what has happened. Those who killed Thomas Sankara are being put on trial. Nigeria must reach a point where something has to happen. And that is the language of EndSARS, the message of EndSARS. Something has for the killers of Delegiwa to be brought to justice in this country. Something must happen that has to shake Nigeria to its very foundation.
Thank you very much.
And until that happens, we can only continue to demand for justice. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me come back to Madam Rashidat Adeshino. Your story is remarkable. But let's hear your view about the continual non-resolution of the death of Delegiwa.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everybody, and thanks for the opportunity. For me, we are talking about 35 years of killing of Delegiwa, and I'm very sure even before that time, we've also had brutal killings, and we are still having, it's still ongoing, as we speak. For me, is a confirmation, of the fact that when you live in a class society, where the commanding height of the economy is being controlled by a tiny minority, where the mass majority of the people lives in abject poverty. The role of the state really in such society is actually to defend the interest of that minority group of people. That is the truth. Forget about what they want us to believe. Forget about what they're telling us, the ruling elite and their apologies. They will tell us it depends on everybody. They tell us we have rights, right of peaceful gathering, right to express yourself and the rest of it. But it is not supposed to have a right. You must also have capacity to accumulate and defend our rights. And that capacity for us lies in our ability to organize the vast majority of the people who have been subjected to mass poverty by the policies of this ruling elite. So for me, it is not possible to have that kind of system and still think that you can't have a society without police brutality. It is just there acting like you are looking for a lion that you what it means. So it's not possible. So looking for the killer, unless you want to wait to eat, as long as you see how peaceful people, this election that is at the end of the case, you can never find that killers. Look at the EndSARS. They consider different panels of environment. We don't think nothing who can come out of that panel. We need a radical fundamental change in this society before we can even see the killer at all. As long as these people is there, forget it. It is in their interest not for you to find that killer and they can never find it.
All right, because they see that let me rein in your thoughts. We're coming to EndSARS, but let me go to the last two gentlemen over there. Let me take Femi Adeyeye first. What do you think of the death of Delegiwa 35 years after?
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, everyone. I wouldn't say much actually about Mr. Delegiwa because we're talking about something that happened 35 years ago.
Yeah.
And I do not even think I'm around. Many persons have been given history. I'm talking about the speakers. But some of us read this thing in the book and we understand what it is about. But there is this thing that is missing, and if you could, connect both Delegiwa and the EndSARS thing, it's this presumption of citizenship. There are no citizens yet in Nigeria. That's number one. There are no citizens yet in Nigeria. So what happened? Delegiwa was just trying to assume, that he is a citizen. Using his skills, his organizational ability, and every other thing to put all something together, at least to unearth some of the corruption in his society. But what happened? He was brutally killed. And we all know this story. I don't want to repeat it. The same thing happened during EndSARS. The young people of this generation were trying to become citizens. Because there is nowhere in the world where a government would load a gun with bullets and face citizens. You don't kill citizens, you kill slaves. So the relationship that we have in the ruling class today, because I want to align my thoughts totally with Comrade Rashidat,
Right.
is the slave master and the slave relationship. That is what we have. The ruling class do not see us as citizens yet. Because you can only talk about rights, human rights, when you are seen first as a human being. And there are so many indices to this particular thing. Now,
Look at what happened at the Lekki toll gate.
No, I want us to come back to EndSARS. Let me just take Vector now, so he gives us his piece, his views about. Yeah.
I just need this 2 minutes to be able.
We're coming to EndSARS.
It's a very big.
We're coming to hashtag EndSARS, but let's take Vector's views about this 35 years after Delegiwa.
It's good afternoon, everyone. I'm popularly known as Vector the Riper, but my name is Ogumefo Nariman David. Well, my dad served in the Nigerian police until he retired and he passed on in 2017. Looking at how everything has transpired from Delegiwa to EndSARS, all I can see is, pardon because I'm going to speak in Yoruba once in a while, because I'm starting to learn that there is value in our traditional adages and sayings. So to make that clearer is to say to you that I don't think there's anything the Bible teaches or the Quran teaches that there is no traditional adage for. So, it is what our leaders have learned from who taught them about leadership. So in my head, because I'm asking what's the rules, at what point did it become okay for a black man to think it is okay to kill another black man for nothing? It must mean that at the core of everything that we're doing, if we don't talk, say, this is how you treat a black man. I have kids, I have 2 of them. I don't spend the road as well the child. However, in your man borrow, no. Like there's a way to speak to a human being. So I feel like the connector here is at the core of what we've practiced and how we've learned the things that we've practiced. The white man has come to tell teachers in Africa that you have to beat African students to learn, whereas in their own home, it is not so. Right? So it is a foundation. It's like the course has been passed on from colonial masters to black colonial masters. Right. And that will be all I have to say on what I said.
All right, thank you very much. Can we appreciate them all? Now, I know this is the part you've all been waiting for, the hashtag EndSARS. So I'm going to start from Adele over there and speak to your experience of hashtag EndSARS.
Okay. EndSARS. I'm trying to be brief anyway, but this is a very big thing. I was at the Lekki panel yesterday, and the victims and every other person who lived there left that place disappointed because until now the reports of the massacre have not been out. What we were told is that it will be sent to the governor, and then the governor will issue a white paper and then any other round like that. But what happened during EndSARS actually, like I said earlier, is a presumption of citizenship. People came out to say, okay, we will always call us citizens of this country. Can we test this citizenship on the streets? Can we test these rights on the streets? You've called us the leaders of tomorrow. Can we even test this thing on the streets? But what happened? For the first time in my life, I saw something very organized, well mobilized. In fact, people were cleaning the streets. So when they came with this idea that hoodlums hijack, because we should ask our politicians, during political rallies, when do the commissioner of police would always say, the commissioner of police said they notice that hoodlums will hijack their political rallies? We don't see that. But it's always during protests, you will be, suddenly the commissioner of police becomes very concerned. And will now start telling them, please, don't go about that protest because hoodlums will hijack it. And those people they call hoodlums are Nigerians. They are their friends during election. When after election, during protest, they become hoodlums. After hoodlums, they become thugs. You see, so they have different coinages for them depending on what they are doing at a particular time. But EndSARS has taught us just, one thing. And some of us will come from the very radical background. For those who know my history at the University of Lagos, you know all the things you've been putting up in that place, even till this time. what EndSARS has taught is that you don't have to be too confrontational, or in fact, if you say you want to be mild with your demands, provided your demands are against the class interest of the ruling class, they would come after you. For some of us in the revolution now movements, anytime I know, because I mentioned revolution now, some of you are already shaking. Because when you hear revolution, you think it's violence and all of that. But let me say this, ever since we started the revolution now thing, no, we've not recorded any casualty of death. And so some person said, okay, revolution is too confrontational. We want to overturn the government, we want to chase out everybody. Okay, let us reduce it to EndSARS and just bring out 5 demands. Just conservative demands that even don't let us change the system, let's just reform 1 or 2. And look at what happened. People were killed for that. And that's to tell you that if you like, take it away from revolution now, make it jubilation now, clapping now, standing now, sitting now, provided whatever you are saying is against the class interest of the people running this country today, they will come after you. And you're thanking me every time. You see, many persons have said we were here last week Monday, and the conversation has always been about we need to organize ourselves. And I ask the question, what are we organizing? What are we organizing? No, who are we organizing means ourselves. But what exactly are we organizing? The speaker there today has mentioned elections. I have then asked myself, which election? Is it with this motivated electoral act? Right. That says that the threshold that you can spend to become president is 15 billion. As you can spend less anyways, but you cannot spend more than 15 billion. And we all know, with the kind of electoral violence, election violence we all see, this guy spend more than 5 billion. But now it has become law that he can spend 15 billion. So what are you expecting in 2023?
Right, let me stop you at that question. What are we expecting in 2023? Let me quickly say we have to manage time. So that's why you find me cutting in and saying, let's take the other panelists so that we can take all the questions and document our experiences for the benefit of those who want to leave early. Right, so let me come to Vector. You're a musician. You just told us your father was a policeman. But you were actively involved in the hashtag EndSARS. The thinking is that Nigerian musicians are not protest-oriented. They do not do protest songs. It's always shake your booty kind of song they're singing. But you seem to be different. What was the thinking behind you joining the hashtag EndSARS so actively?
The bottom line for me will always be humanity. I remember then I was in St. Gregory's College and I was watching the Beslan attacks in Russia. I was watching it on TV and it didn't make sense to me how somebody that looks like Rambo from an action movie is shooting an assault rifle into a dispersing amount of kids. I started to ask myself questions I started to question my faith. I started to ask God, the science, you know everything. And so, before the bomb Bin Laden, say Bin Laden will be Bin Laden. Why you allow him become Bin Laden? I started to ask those questions. And in the barracks, people would hear me speak and say, it's so eloquent and whatever it is. But there was a time I was sleeping, and how did I wake up? A huge rat jumped on my chest. I was babysitting my younger brother in the house. And seeing how life in the barracks is one other systematic way of putting certain men with ammunition in a mental state that will make them misbehave. Thank God for my dad. At this point, I've never really appreciated my dad so much, and this is the moment that it hits me. Because he tried. My dad made sure that his kids were not statistic figures. Yeah, I'm not going to Larry or whatever it is. He never allowed that. My dad's pride preceded everything. Before you insult him, he don't come on.
So how did you feel seeing that the hashtag EndSARS was actually based on police brutality?
Oh yeah, because I'm also aware that at a certain point, certain officers have to hustle for their superiors. So the people that you're fighting are not the people that you're fighting. the situation is more than the guy on the streets that is holding an AK-47 and harassing you. Most of those guys have targets. I know how much my mom went to sit down and do power meetings so that my dad could be taken away from Goza. Or when he had I'm in Baragway, I can give you, I know that if you die as an officer, in the next 3 to 6 months, they will evict your family as if they don't belong there. So I'm seeing that, but then again, I'm also a youth, and I'm seeing how much, even if you think this guy is a corrupt person, there's investigation for that purpose. Investigate them. You can't take law into your own hands and start to execute them. However, during my own protest on Lagos Island, we had officers in Mufti. Because in my head, it's always going to be humanity first. Why we're referencing the Nigiwa today is because of humanity. Why we're referencing the EndSARS campaign that went left is because of humanity. Because at the end of everything else that we're talking about, humanity wins.
Right, just before I leave you, thank you, I appreciate you. Right, so how did you feel at some point during the protest when those hoodlums started attacking police stations and police barracks, as we heard?
It's so, if you're intelligent enough to observe and remove yourself from emotional attachment, it's all plan work now. And I dare say this, and to all the young people, because we keep sounding like young people they are foolproof, that you cannot blame them. A lot of young people are stupid as well, because you can watch on social media where some people who have been compromised. I remember the first set of the usage of the word insurgency started from certain people who said they were leaders. Insurrection, I mean. That they said it was an insurrection because somebody felt I started the movement and it has been hijacked by some level of insurrection. I started to point fingers. Any intelligent thinking being will know that to be a basis for an argument for the government to step in and call it what they called it. They used some of us to suggest. Then they used some of us to implant the suggestion. I remember telling my friends that I think it's time for us to bring all dog owners, bring your dogs to the site for protection. But you could tell that the moment you started to fortify security, you started to find weapons. They will plant people that you can't blame as well because they are also a victim of systemization. So you could tell that they were planting that in so that it can support the argument of insurrection, so that they can scatter it because, of course, divide and conquer.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it. Let me come to Imi. Now, the hashtag EndSARS protest will be remembered in history for its sophistication. It was well planned. It was a social media thing. Money was coming in from all kinds of places. Crypto, these, it was so, sophisticated a plan and protest. You're a young lawyer. Talk to us about how you felt while this was going on in your party in it, if you took part in it.
Oh, sure, I took part in it. I led a dozen of lawyers in Lagos to march to public command. That was also symbolic. Because if who are victims, the group of people who are victims of the decay in the police, it is Nigerian lawyers. The moment you appear at the police station, lawyer, the Republican antagonist, see you are. Now, my understanding is that the greatest, it does appear, and this is a lesson for history, it does appear that the greatest strength of the EndSARS protest was also its greatest weakness, or its most significant weakness. The absence of some form of leadership. We must concede was responsible for that protest going the extent it went. It was also responsible for the flaws of the EndSARS protest. As young people, we should have the courage to admit it. At some point, we needed people who could interface, people who could articulate that the demand. To some extent, the protest continued. But that was also why some of the things that happened. So my hope is that the next EndSARS, because I tell you, we are talking about EndSARS. SARS has not ended. In the minds of young people, SARS represents the symbol of oppression. And that today, the police is still killing people. There's a case I'm doing in Akwa, where a young graduate, just in August, was tortured to death in police custody. Police are still killing people on a daily basis across Nigeria, from Lagos and other parts of the country. My hope is that the next EndSARS protest, because there has to be another EndSARS, as long as what gave birth to that protest has not stopped, they have, in fact, the greatest advocate of EndSARS is the Nigerian government. Every single day, they tell us why we have to go back on the streets. Right. So I'm saying, finally, that the next time, and I hope it will be sooner than I expect, the next time we are going out on the street, we would have better organization, we would have set up certain machinery in place to counter what will naturally be a fallout of that struggle. Thank you.
Thank you. The greatest advocate for #EndSARS is the Nigerian government. Right? That's what you said.
Buhari is strong, the number one supporter of EndSARS. Because his actions, his statements, the regime has given Nigeria the reason to protest. So let us also look at it from the positive side. While you think they are against EndSARS, the inaction is telling you that you must go back to the street.
Thank you very much.
So if they don't change the actions, our reaction shouldn't change. Absolutely. When they change the actions, we will also react differently. That's my position.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Let me come to the fiery lawyer, Madam Rashida Tadeshino. I'm going to go back to your story of protest. You one-man army. You have a history of a personal protest against the system. Now, from that point, look at #EndSARS and speak to us about your views about it.
Well, first correct that impression. I'm not a one-man person protest. I don't believe in fighting for the people. We fight along with the people. That's our own belief.
I'm talking about your protest in Unilore.
Yes, the protest was done along with the students, themselves, because we speak, we represent the interest of the student, and at no point we have ever considered our consciousness for the mass of the students themselves. We move along with the students to protest. We don't do it on their behalf. Yes, coming back to the EndSARS movement, there is no doubt that EndSARS movement was, one of the largest youth movements, we've ever had in the history of this country. And that movement alone was actually an expression, of the mass anger, mass frustration, and discontent of the Nigerian youth, who have been the most hit by the crisis of this system itself. We know the unemployment rate in this country. You have mass majority of the youth graduating from universities on a yearly basis, and they look at the future. It's very, very bleak for them. So it was actually a reaction, unconscious reaction, to a society that has revised all piecemeal solutions. That was what that EndSARS represented, for us. But like my, comrades stated, there are also a lot of limitations within that movement itself. That limitation initially, at least, was like an advantage. If you don't have a central leadership, coordination, and the rest of it, it became very difficult initially for the regime to quell that movement, because there were no, central leadership to say they want to discuss or negotiate it. But that also contributed to the weakness of that movement itself, because you cannot confront an organized enemy with instruments of oppression and repression in a disorganized and naive way. It is never done. You cannot. Yes, it's naive, because it has limit to how far you can be coming out every day in a carnival-like manner, dancing on the left, without advancing that movement even beyond that in terms of organization, in terms of programs itself for that movement. And that was how that movement itself ended, the way it ended. So the lessons for us is that EndSARS movement is actually a dress rehearsal, to an inevitable clash between the oppressed and the oppressor. And that is why for us, organization should be the primary thing. It is the main task for us. We need to be organized in such a way, even politically, because that movement itself raises the question of power. Like the 2012 movement that we had in the past. People were on the street, their power was on the street, nobody to pick it up. That is for us that the needed task before us now is how to be organized politically. Because what we need in this country is actually that political transformation from the current roles that we currently have with us. Without it, there is no way out.
Thank you very much. Professor Martin always said that much. We need to teach the youth to organize, and we need to teach community organizers. Let me come to you, Troya Alaka. Tell us your perspective, your views about the coverage of EndSARS, #EndSARS by the media. You're a trainer of journalists. You have female reports, that's what it's called, and you train, female journalists across Nigeria how to report. Talk to us about the reportage and the coverage.
Well, I think that the coverage of EndSARS is clear. So we train not just female reporters but investigative reporters. And many of the people we trained covered the story and they did big stories on it. But what is clear is that the media over the years, the history of Nigeria, has always pitched its tent with the people. All the challenges of the media notwithstanding. When it comes to something that relates to oppression of Nigerians, the media does not stand aloof, especially when it's a mass thing. So when you talk about corruption cases, one media house might give the story and another media house might not. But when you talk about the oppression of Nigerians, the direct oppression of Nigerians, all media houses are in solidarity. And EndSARS got very, very good coverage. Very good coverage. Even voices, it wasn't about just known faces. It was about anybody who was willing to speak their mind. And that's why I disagree with the concept of my citizenship. I am a citizen, the oppressor cannot grant you your freedom. So if you are waiting for them to validate our position, we're going to wait forever. We're citizens. We have a right in the room. As a matter of fact, they are their employers. They are employees. It is our power. Yes, the reality is far from it. True. This is the country, and there is a country, and that is why our narrative must become more nuanced, even as media. We cannot just have faces of leaders always on the cover pages. How about the faces of the people? How about the faces of young Nigerians trying to make a change? How about the faces of young Nigerians organizing in one way or the other? Whoever has the narrative has the perspective. And the challenge that I have seen with the media, and I've done quite a number of media monitoring, I've read a lot that others have done, is a lack of strategy. The politicians, like we have all said, always come ready, organized. We mostly wait for the news to happen and then we report. There is a need for us to also have a strategy to narrate and to tell the story of the Nigerian people as citizens. Young people taking up their own space and leading. The media has the duty to give them the platform to speak. I will often tell journalists that I train that you can speak to newsmakers. So I've mentioned Fred many times, and I say that, by now, you should have gotten a second, a third, a fourth person that will replace him. Don't keep going back to that same person. It's true that you speak to those people who have already made the news, who are newsmakers. But the media has the capacity to make newsmakers. So it is important for us to know that these are not just known voices. There are so many voices that agree with him, but nobody has asked them what their opinion was. And EndSARS was that time when young people did say their opinion and show that we can organize, we can change. So many mistakes made, but we all do that every day. Well, the thing is that we go back to the drawing board and then we reorganize. And then the access of media, the concentration of media at the central level is something I've talked a lot about. We need to go and face the governors. We need to ask, do we have a democracy? Where is the local government? If the house does not have a foundation, how come we are seeing skyscrapers? Where is local government? So many local governments have administrators, not elected people. So we need to take media back to the place that questions government, who have become lords of the manor. They do not raise any funds. They are bailed out day in, day out, and they are totally unaccountable. So this is a federation. We need to take accountability to the states. We need to take accountability to the local government. And we need to publish what the citizens are saying more. We've heard what our presidents and governors have to say. The citizens of Nigeria have things to say, and we need to talk more about them. And no, without a doubt, I've said many times, the media cannot be silenced. I must apologize, so I will have to run. I mentioned that I will leave at 10 to 1, but I'm still here. But I do need to run because I have another meeting to get to.
Thank you very much, Ms. Maya. We appreciate that she takes her leave. And on that note, I'm coming to you, the audience. We'll be talking about the theme for this gathering, 1 year after #EndSARS, 35 years after Delegua, and the book we're launching today, The Quest to Remake Nigeria. And you've listened to the keynote speakers, you've listened to parts of the panelists, and our 3 major speakers. Would there be anyone in the audience? Thank you very much. Would there be anyone in the audience who would like to ask a question? The speakers are still here. Please make your question quite short and straight to the point. Do me a favor, write it if you have to. But please don't ask 3-paragraph questions. I will stop you. So we need someone to pass around. Yeah. Thank you very much. Let's take you, sir. Hello, from the front here. Thank you.
I used to be a journalist, and we remember very well the Delegua was killed. It's not far from here. And there have been a lot of disinformation, or misinformation. One of them was that there was a meeting purportedly arranged with editors to either to press on an evening with. Then there was also the allegation that he was gold running, he was going to recruit one retired police officer, and those who were and that he was also plotting the revolution. And then there was also the case of Gloria Cole, a drug courier who was said to be doing drug trafficking, one of the top military officers, who died in detention, and the regular was reportedly investigating the story. So there were so many stories. And our generation, people will have to do. Richard didn't publish a book about it. And there are evidence that we don't do except the evidence is everywhere. The only issue with point of arrest is that nobody has been prosecuted. But there were processes of prosecution. But recently, I saw a 90-year-old former prison guard, I think in Germany, dragged to court because of what he did during World War. He was never forgiven. He was never impunity. Number 2, the EndSARS campaign for me was more like a reawakening. It was a reawakening because when we started this process around 1987 or beyond, and then the June 12 revolution came, we campaigned and took control of this because for 11 weeks. On a single day, more than 271 people were killed.
Lagos. I saw 10 bodies at Oshodi. One was in the village, still trying to cry, was still crying, and was trying to protect him, and the police, the soldiers said they touched my children. So we have seen so much in this Lagos, in this Nigeria. The Lagos bomb blast was not the last. I'm sure you remember Bakana County. I remember when even the military people were pumping themselves in the streets of Lagos.
All right.
So I want us to put this in context. Let us keep thinking that we must rescue Nigeria. Some of us are now, so I don't know what I'm talking everywhere. You know. So these are some of the issues. And I agree with you, madam, that it's basically a class thing. You know, how many children of areas were killed in Keffi?
Okay.
Like, how many of them were out there campaigning?
All right.
My son was out there in Africa. So I have to ask myself, is it a generational thing? So the campaign started, my son should continue and all of that. Their own children are still sitting at home.
Okay.
But I could not stop. 4 of them were out. I could not stop them. So thank you very much. They are citizens of Nigeria. I have earned the right to be a Nigerian citizen. That is part of that song.
Thank you very much, sir.
We know it's to be Nigeria. You know it's but it knows it's so better than.
Thank you very much. Let's come to let's quickly take senior advocates of Nigeria, Mr. Pedro, to respond.
I think I need to correct certain historical inaccuracies. Because I also have to brush up. Number one, because if we don't also get our facts right, we simply parrot the position of the government and even blame ourselves. Number one, in Abuja and Lagos, publicly, it was the government that unleashed violence on peaceful protesters. The government hired thugs and unleashed them on protesters at Alausa, at Abuja. We all saw jeeps conveying criminal elements, shooting in broad daylight. And at the end of the day, nobody was arrested. The government was so embarrassed, I came out, oh, the vehicle did not belong to the government but to a senator. Who is that senator? Nothing happened. Secondly, the people that are called hoodlums are a creation of the society. Lumpen elements are created by the neo-colonial peripheral capitalist system that we run. The government again uses them in peacetime. They are called area boys. During political campaign, they are thugs. During revolts, they are miscreants and hoodlums. This time around, government hired them. Protesters arrested some of them in Lagos and in Abuja. Handed them over to the police, but nothing happened to them. Second point about this leadership thing. Again, we need to be careful. Government cannot create leaders for a movement. Government wanted leaders to talk to negotiate with and bribe, possibly, to call off the strike or the protest. And this normally happens with the labor movement. You go and get labor aristocrats to ruin or even not allow a strike to take off. In the dead of the night, they said they have to agree with the government. I was talking to a young man, they were leaders. Don't let deceive ourselves, they were leaders. People were raising money, they were leaders. People were giving interviews to local and foreign media, they were leaders. The leaders you didn't have were those who were elected and nominated to negotiate with the government. They were leaders. An organization almost collapsed the country for almost 10 days. You said there are no leaders. They were leaders. Now, don't think of leaders like bourgeois politicians. These are the people to negotiate with, who want to have a strike. These are the labor leaders who want to negotiate with them. No. The other point about this, what were the demands that you want? Oh, we need taxes. Next time, let's strategize to do what? We are not talking of taking over power. That's another matter. If people are still saying extrajudicially. This must stop. And people now came out because we're also engaging with some of these young people. I was talking to somebody, said, I think you have made your point. He said, no, this is why they defeated your generation. What point have we made? We are saying people should not be killed illegally, they should not be arrested and detained without basis. Is that not still happening? Even while they were on strike? Okay, you have a point there. Okay. Let us remain where we are peacefully. When our demands are met, we'll go home. And when I say, yes, you are right, he then said, old man, in China, not China,
Russia?
a strike had been on since almost 18 months. Young people were coming out on the street daily. Hong Kong. Nobody said, oh, you have made your point, go home. But here, in a week, in 5 days, oh, you are not allowing us to go to the market. No, you have made your point. What point have we made? So please, don't blame the young people who came out and were organized. Do you know what other thing they taught us that nobody has spoken about? The fund that was collected was accounted for, and the young people showed a lesson in accountability in how to run an organization. And we're all saying, with some organizational capacity, that body held the country down. There were protests not just in Nigeria, in different parts of the world. It even engaged the attention of the United Nations Secretary General, Antonio Guterres, who came out to commend the young people. And many other young people in other parts of Africa and the world were also glued. They were glued to their television to know what was happening in Nigeria. The young people were not violent. It was the government that was violent. And we must say this, we have the evidence. And again, you haven't spoken about what happened after the protest. Young people had their passports seized. Some, because they didn't commit any offense, the government could not prosecute them. But the government now hired a mercenary in Abuja to go and get another to say the police should investigate about 50 of these people. They know they were leaders. They wanted 50 of them prosecuted. So the government identified the leader. The government seized the accounts of 20 of them. The government knew they were leaders. So they were leaders who you might say were not elected, but they were leaders. And there was also a leader, last point, there was a leader who claimed, and I think two of the panelists said that, somebody came initially to say, oh, I started this movement, they have hijacked it.
Thank you very much. We'll take about 3 more from the audience and then we'll return to our panelists. We'll come back to the panelists. Just hold your tongue better. Yeah? You want to respond quickly to what you said? Quickly then.
Yes. Show that the youth are ready to stand for what they believe. If anything, I ask a simple question. If we put our unity in check, because they're putting so much pressure on the young people, and I appreciate you saying okay, because I can say this again, that this is one of the only times in my entire life as an adult that I've met an older person who has said, don't blame the young people, let them continue, because you're about to say, right? We are going to attempt and keep doing our best until we get it right.
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you very much. Let me let you know that the books are outside. 5,000 for the hard copy, 3,000 for the other copy. You were going to say something quickly.
I wanted to ask a question, and my question is quite fundamental. We have a systemic problem in Nigeria, and we are not looking at the generation after this one. I'm talking about those of us who are in tertiary institutions. Because the representative of the states that we have in tertiary institutions are grooming another set of people who are like-minded with the current state or the system that we have, who will take over after them. If we allow the tertiary institutions to go the way they are, in their close-minded policies, thank you, close-minded policies, we wouldn't go far even after we win this temporary battle. So I want to ask a fundamental question as regards the argument of tertiary institutions when they victimize students. I was expelled from the Nigerian Institute of Journalism last month for writing articles and conducting a survey. And when you ask them, why did you expel this person? They will say the school had rules. So I was invited to a panel. I told the school that the Constitution gives me freedom of speech. The Constitution gives me freedom of expression. Are you saying that I can forego those freedoms, those rights, because I want to be a student in your institution? So I want that question to be fundamentally addressed, because in fact, a lawyer, a very young lawyer, told me that there are court judgments that have upheld that argument, that schools have their rules and students will have to forego fundamental constitutional rights to abide by the regulations of the school. How true and how correct is that?
All right.
Sorry, madam. Sorry. Since he has been suspended, after the program, just see my colleague here, Imi, and your matter can be taken up.
Thank you very much. Okay, somebody from this side of the hall, can we get in the microphone, please?
Sorry.
Please make your question straight to the point.
Good afternoon. My name is Perilous. My question will be directed to the Sam and Comrade Larry. While Comrade Larry was giving his speech, I remember you mentioned something about National Conscience Party, and you actually mentioned about 3 leaders in the civil society that were part of that movement. For me, that party is Shitanifan Against Legacy, because there were wins that was achieved through that party. I don't know if this is correct. I think it took them to court regarding candidates paying 9 years to contest and all of that. And he won that you can contest free of charge. I said, only what your party is doing, you are going to pay to your party. So my question is, what happened to that party? The party may still be in existence, but I know the SAN and yourself is not part of that movement. Okay, what happened? Was it
what happened to the party? That's the question.
That's the question. That's the question. And why, sorry, just a minute. Why I ask this question is because all of us cannot be civil rights activists. Part of the change we desire is not going to be achieved by protesting. For me, I believe politics, or by politics I don't mean joining APC or joining political participation, let me say that, is a bridge to good governance. And good governance is the bridge to development. And all we are discussing is for Nigeria to be developed.
Right.
If Nigeria is a developed country.
Okay. You've asked the question, let Mr. Lara respond. And then I'll take you, sir, at the back. And you, sir, and that will be the end.
Okay, when the party is still there, but I will say some of us have to leave because the leadership became what we call reactionary, and they were not going to stand on those ideals. As a matter of fact, in the 2007 elections, I was supposed to be the governorship candidate of the party in Lagos State, but somehow, despite being elected, the whole arrangement was upturned, and you can't belong to that kind of formation. However, we are also having discussion of all these groups, parties, and so on, coming together to agree on a common agenda. The ruling classes that we are fighting, anytime they run into brick wall, will recreate themselves. APC is a recreation. And those of us who believe that the government must be centered on the people, must be focused on the people, should also be able to come together and agree on that agenda. Because the difference between us and them is very clear. These people run government. They can give it anything, public, private, partnership, whatever it's called. It's all about putting collectively produced resources in the pockets. That's why, despite all the bad news we have in the country, price of bread going up, and the rest of them, when Forbes businesses release a list of richest people in the world, Nigeria will still produce many of them, including Dangote. That is the system that puts the collectively produced wealth in the hands of the people. And we are saying that the reverse should be the case. We should allow Nigerians to manage to run our economy and not subject them to privatization that does not favor the people. So that conversation is going on, and hopefully it will yield some results. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. I'll come to you. There's someone over there. Can you please pass to the man with the shirt? Yes. Please make it very quickly.
Okay, thank you very much. My name is Sowore. I represent One Year Commemorative Activism about physical issues that are always community activism. Yeah, issues that are always because we are the forefront of fighting for electricity, and we're still in court now. Now,
okay,
what I look at is protection. See, I'm impressed with Sam. I'm always impressed. I sometimes call him like a president. I look at him because he's always at the back, giving support, legal support to the youth as they move forward. But many times when we move forward, we look back. The others are at the back. They don't want to follow because they don't see any means by which somebody is protecting them. The same thing we are having at schools. That is why in schools, the students are redundant, especially in the private universities. They will tell you that they don't have protection. Now, all these things are what we're looking at. What protection do we have?
Okay, so please go to the question.
That's the question. What protection do we have? So that when we move forward, we look back, we see people that are protecting us each time we encounter problem with the government.
What protection do we have?
Yes, the legal protections.
Thank you. Thank you. All right, one of our panelists will respond to that very quickly, and then we'll come to you, sir, and then you'll be.
My simple response is that you should not allow your fear of what the oppressor will do to deter you from doing what you are supposed to do. To my knowledge, I am not aware of any student who was victimized on grounds of student inferiority that was not defended in court by lawyers. I think some of us are still available. Secondly, and lastly, I am also not aware of any person who went out to protest and was arrested, and some of us did not stand up to defend him. I have been involved in a number of such cases. So I can assure you that the legal protection is there. There are some of us who are in this profession because we want to fight for people who cannot fight for themselves. So don't ever be afraid that if you are arrested by the police, nobody will defend you. That is my answer. You must do what needs to be done.
Thank you very much. Let's quickly take you, sir.
Yeah, my name is Aloche. I can just make very brief comments and then ask a question. On the 1 year anniversary of EndSARS, we realized that EndSARS was more of a southern movement. In those states, in Cross River, in Akwa Ibom, there was serious violence which occurred. When I saw the list of the speakers and those who participated in the panel, it appeared skewed to me. It appeared like very Lagos-based. You see, when such things continue to occur and reoccur, it gives some parts of the country some ideas that maybe what we bring here does not concern others. So we should always make efforts to reach out to other parts of the country that are actively affected by issues, so that when next happens to be a nationwide affair. Regarding the findings of Deliniwa's death, 54 years ago, on the 7th of October, people were gathered in Asaba, and they were shocked. In fact, one of the only serious signs of genocide which took place. Those who participated in killing over 1,000 people in Asaba are still alive today. You cannot begin to demand for justice for atrocities from only one instance. You have to ensure that it is holistic. That way, when you now make that kind of push, it becomes a nationwide movement and not just a sectional approach. Regarding the question of rename Nigeria, the fundamentals of Nigeria is skewed. The Nigeria itself, the people make the mistake of calling Nigeria a nation. It is not a nation. Even officially, it's a federation. So if you don't address these issues, people have things wrong. Now, maybe the question I want to ask
I have to stop you here because I want us to finish. Just
I know, because I want to ask is this. All over the world, we are not remaking the wheel. Revolutions have been achieved only by one instrument, that is blood. Myanmar, Laos, you name it. But we are always stopping just short of shedding the blood. Those are the head of affairs will never, repeat, never hand over powers until they realize that there is a very firm resolve to acquire that change. We have not shown that.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Excuse me. I feel to clarify something with what he said. With all due respect, I feel like it is disrespectful to the people who have lost their lives to say that this is not worthy of being called a revolution because there has been bloodshed. People have died, and that's why we are here. So if you want to reevaluate that as well, it would be nice to understand that there are people who have lost their lives for what we're here for. I just want you to make that clear. As a outside movement, let's all do what we can in our pockets so that we can come together. We will say, "He did that secret road and from house to back for party." So in the house we need to back from here. Let every other person who gets is also meet at the middle ground.
Thank you, Vector. Thank you. This time we do this. Where is the microphone? And then right after him, the man behind him, and that will be the audience.
I am Kodawali Okude, part of the celebrating I am not part of that generation. I was part of the EndSARS protest. I was on the field everywhere, and I saw strength and limitations. I did some critical examination and I saw it there. Yes, we say leaders, they were leaders, but we at some point needed to sharpen our ideology and programs. But it didn't gravitate to the next level. Even here in Kenya, some of our colleagues already we have to make very urgent intervention so that what happened in Lekki will be happen. We need ideology. We need ideology. We need leaders who are ideologically oriented, who knows Nigeria. When we are talking about West to relate Nigeria, how do we relate Nigeria? Nigeria was pointed, I was talking to my colleagues, by British negotiators to sack their enemies. And nations were coupled together. And to that extent, what you have is serving what you call the metropole, which we call the imperialists. So in remaking Nigeria, we need to deal with what we call our constitutional national question. It's a democracy question. Listen very well. Because if you don't resolve that, you are going nowhere. Even when you want revolution, there is a problem. We need to educate on because this is very fundamental. We need to educate ourselves. Nigeria is a place that we need to deal with, and the peoples. I say it deliberately, Madam, peoples of Nigeria, we are not one, there is diversity. And we must sit down at the table and agree as peoples, whether by election, whether by referendum. We don't want to hear referendum. We say, this is our country. We keep unto ourselves the constitution. That is democracy. Now democracy doesn't exist. What you have now is military. And you cannot go and do EndSARS without that brutality. They will brutalize it. Because we haven't got that in the shop. People are talking about it. You cannot have it. Therefore, what is to be done? Going forward, is that we must, as a people, begin to think of a party of the people. Not PDP, not APC. People have mounted what we call coming to. It must come to. People must come together to base on the program and then form a party. People have been mounting, forming a party, the People's Party. It must happen ahead of 2023.
Thank you very much.
Be the one that serve the people and Nigeria youth ideologically.
Thank you very much. The need for another party. And finally, before we return to the panelists, yes.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen.
Yes, very briefly.
My name is Dr. Austin Oga. I'm a human rights activist. I want to make a submission and a complaint, though Chief is not on scene, but Thank you very much. So, the question I have to ask on the issue of EndSARS last year, I was a participant on that EndSARS, and even at the official panel of the inquiries. I had a petition to the panel in that last year until last week before we are done with that petition of the police that shot a youth at the last police station, Jackson, killed him that day of that protest. Before the massacre in Lekki told me that incident happened. However, the issue was flashed last week. But another question that I'm yet to ask is, what will happen to the policeman who actually shot the young man?
What will happen to the policeman who shot at the young man?
Yes.
That's the question you're asking.
Two, I was...
And the final one.
The final one. For the past 2 weeks, I've been going to the EFCC office because of somebody who was detained for like 3 weeks now. I discovered something strange at the EFCC office. Every day at the EFCC office, you see a lot of people, large numbers of people. And I was interacting with one of the suspects who was released on bail. He said the EFCC officials tagged them to be the EndSARS protester. And for that reason, this is the way government will turn back to punish them, that they are the people who organize the EndSARS. Because a lot of people have been detained at the EFCC, just like it was then in the days of SARS. No warrants, no order.
Yes, the keynote speaker already spoke to that. Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your thoughts. Now let's return to our panelists who heard from the audience. As a round up, give us your final thoughts about the hashtag EndSARS moving forward. Tomorrow is the anniversary of the horrible killing. As Mr. Larry Abudade said, it was 12 days that shook Nigeria to its foundations. What are your thoughts? Let me start with you, Victor, and then I'll come to you, Femi.
The only thing that I could recall from the EndSARS protest movement was, for the very first time, against all partitioning, you can see Nigerians come together and stand against something. It goes a long way to prove that if we're truly united and we truly come together, it's the analogy of a broomstick versus a bunch. We can have all these ideology conversations and everything, but we all still have doubts against each other. We all still have little things that we think about each other. And the ultimate way for us to go forward would be to honestly unite. Because if nothing unites us, whether by tribe, or by culture, or by difference, one thing unites us is the oppression. And until we're able to come together and say, she really be suffer. She really be suffer. And to address something you said, we can all be civil rights activists. I personally don't want anybody's mother to cry the tears that I don't want my mother to cry. So I feel like one of the best ways to avoid unnecessary killings is, so imagine if 2 million youths came out, what force can stop them? But then again, coming out in peace to say, no, it's that simple. The moment we're able to unite together and make this point that we want passed across to the leaders or to whatever, whether I want to create a party, whether I want to stand here or want to stand with this person. The ultimate thing for me here is unity. I'm willing to collaborate and unite with true energy that wants Nigeria to move forward. And that's the note I'll leave my own.
Thank you very much. A round of applause for Vector. All right, let's hear you.
All right, thank you very much. And I will just submit by saying I am still maintaining the fact that EndSARS was a presumption of citizenship. I still want to maintain that because it's highly presumptive if we want to start that discussion. Nigeria is not a nation yet. It is just a place where you have different people. Like I said, sir, it's a place that you stitch people together and just brought everybody. And in what we used to say about what happened in 1914 as the amalgamation, it's the amalgamation of the northern and southern protectorates, not the people. I'm not a protectorate. Protectorates are administrative units of the colonial interests. So instead of stealing from the north and separately and stealing from the south separately, you have to bring them together so they can steal and exploit them once and for all. So, but it's another discussion from another day. So, but as we're moving into the EndSARS memorial, and I think everybody here would also join us tomorrow at the Lekki toll gates. Let's have this in mind that never should that time come in this country that will be so afraid to stand against oppression. Never should that happen. What the government is doing actually is to chase everybody from the streets, put us in rooms like this, so we'll be talking to ourselves. So you start looking for safe places to protest. Now, when you leave the streets, look at what's happening in the southeast. People are saying, leave the streets. They are protesting. They are tradition and all of that. They went home. Army, the Nigerian army is going to their homes now. We will kill them. Sit at home. So people raise Shiite flag. The Nigerian army shot at them. Another section of the society raised the African flag, the shots. At Lekki toll gate, Nigerian flag was raised. They still shot. So that leads to make us understand that all of these things, you must understand that we just have to overturn this system because it's not going to work. And then you mentioned something about party, and that's where I will end this so I don't take too much of the time. You see, even if you have a people's party and you bring it under this system that is not pro people, the party will collapse. The likes of Larry is not just, he was being economical with the truth about what happened with NCD. Some of us have moved very close with these people and we know what happened. Right. On electoralism, sorry, and now I'm just in 10 seconds. There are always two questions you must answer in electoralism. That is the question of who to change and what to change. In this society, we only measure ourselves on whom to change. And that is why we changed the Jonathan for Ibuani, thinking that something will just happen by some magic wand. In 2014 and 2015, if a vote had contested against Jonathan, Nigerians would have voted for that vote because it was that bad. We just wanted the PDP out of power. We did not interrogate the what to change question. I want the what to change. You are changing a system. It is a system question. If you like bring the most incorruptible person into this system, the person will fail. This is a system that makes sure that corruption is the order of the day. Go back to the Constitution. Let's go back to the Constitution that we all said we the people, that they wrote and they put your signature.
Can we give him a round of applause?
So that's it. We'll continue the conversation after.
If you believe that he will go on and on and on.
No, you have to be fair to me. What do you mean that I've been economical with the truth? That means you are saying that I was lying. What?
Please give me back the mic. Please give me back the mic.
Okay, what I mean by you being economical, I was like saying you're being diplomatic when you were answering the question about NC. What I understand is that there are some internal rankings that you would not like to say here. Do you understand? That was the reason for that particular.
All right, so let's move on to the lawyer. So, your final thoughts.
You asked a question on what will happen to the police officer. No, anybody that has home in Buhari is a homeless person. I'm telling you, the challenge with these panels, primarily, is that by law, no state governor can discipline a police officer. And that is the problem with the Lekki toll gate. Those who are expecting that those soldiers will be punished tomorrow, they are just in a dreamland. It will never happen that this again. Because for a police officer to be sanctioned, there are procedures. So instantly we may have the police service commission. There has to be orderly room trial. Now these panels that governors set up, even when their reports come out, they still have to send it back to Abuja for implementation. So the only difference in Lagos, luckily for us, is that because of the nature of the state, you even have Sowore coming out with some amount of money as compensation. Apart from Lagos, in the other states, which other states have even set out an amount to compensate victims? Even the federal government is promising no budgetary provision has been made for that. So those policemen, even when they are indicted, they will not be punished on the basis of the outcome of the panel. They will be punished on the basis of the implementation of the outcome. Don't know if you get the difference. Will Buhari implement it? I am not very optimistic. Now, my concluding words. Nigeria must decide the country that they want. And I submit to you that something revolutionary has to happen. I do not believe that we will change Nigeria through the ballot. Yes, we can change the people in power if they even allow our votes to count. But the fundamentals, we should be one country in history, from Asia to America to Europe, that became a civilized country without some form of revolution. We can recognize people like Sowore and coming to that are shouting revolution now. But in the final analysis, we will all come to the conclusion that until the Nigerian people gather in their thousands and millions and make political demands of people in power, this country will not change.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now back to Madam Rashida Additional. Okay, thank you very much. Somebody asked about the various state panels. Will anyone be held accountable, or it will be like the other panels which ended up being used? You may want to say something about that.
Well, I don't expect anything spectacular, about those panels at all. I don't expect anything coming out from the panel. There are past similar panels in the past, and nothing comes out from it. First, I wanted to say that we are discussing the lesson of EndSARS does not mean that we do not recognize the courage that was actually, and guide us against the next occurrence, which for me is fast approaching in Nigeria. And yes, there were some emergence of imaginary leaders at some point during that moment itself. But the question is, what sort of leadership is required for us to fight and win? That's a very fundamental question. And I think Congress mentioned when making his contribution that we need leadership that has ideological clarity and direction about the task that is ahead of us. So when we discuss remaking Nigeria, comrades, we don't have to deceive ourselves. When I was going through this book, because we need to be frank with ourselves, we cannot be discussing remaking Nigeria when we see how those that were even part of our problems themselves, as they with a forward of federalism Nigeria, Dr. Kayode Fayemi, unless we want to be deceiving ourselves, we need to do something radically different from what we have been doing before. So in remaking Nigeria, because the only way forward, genuine way forward in this country today, actually lies in radical and surgical transformation of this country, and that will be through a socialist revolution. We have come to the point in Nigeria that none of our fundamental problems can actually be resolved by these 11 elites that are have been there for the past 51 years, and this current system that we currently operate, we need a radical change. And the apparatus for that radical change actually lies in building a mass party of the working class and the youth that is going to be based on socialist ideology. We need an ideological difference from what we currently have. We are not talking of APC and PDP. Those are the same side of the same coin, the same policy, the same ideology. We need that ideological difference to effectively making, of Nigeria. It is not just forming a party. We need a party that is radically different from what we currently have. And that is the only way forward for us as a country.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Thank you. When I said you were a one-woman rider, this is what I mean. Yeah. That you have that tenacity. That you keep it until you get it done. And if you didn't do that, you wouldn't have graduated from the University of Ilorin. I truly admire you. There are a lot of women there who are just jubilating inside of them for the kind of woman you turned out to be and the kind of advocate you become. Thank you very much for the struggle. I will pivot to the book that was presented today. In the very first page of it, you will find a quote by Professor Wole Soyinka, and it says, and I quote, "A nation is brought into being through the political and inclusive will of its citizens, not through mere naming." And I think our panelists have said that much in all that they've spoken about today. Please, a round of applause for all of them. Thank you very much. Femi Adeyeye, thank you very much for your thoughts. Olariwaju Ogunmefu, aka Vector, thank you very much for your time. And finally, lawyer, somebody was talking about continuity and mentorship. I think we have another Falana in the making in Ibe Efion. Thank you very much for your thoughts. And of course, to Motunayo Alaka, who had to go because she had another engagement. Thank you, everyone, for your time. Thank you to the panelists as well as you, the audience. At this juncture, I'm going to ask Mr. Richard Mama to come over and give us a vote of thanks. Where is he? Mr. Richard Mama. Please, a round of applause for him. He's one of the contributors. Mr. Chido Onuma, please join the panelists. Contributor, Omotola, Mr. Larry Arobudade, please you can come. Oh, you should hold the vote here. Mr. Amma, go on with your vote.
All right, thank you very much. I think on behalf of the contributors and the organizers, we want to appreciate everyone who has found time to come and join us in this conversation. I think we want to thank the chairman, Professor Otomi, want to thank the keynote speaker, Femi Fagola SAM. We also want to thank all of the contributors and all of the participants in the discussions. We want to say we are very grateful, and also want to thank the audience, our friends in the media, and everyone who has come today to help make this event the great and resounding success that has turned out to be. Thank you very much, and God bless you as well.
Thank you, Mr. Richard Mama. Can we give a round of applause on behalf of the organizers and the partners, African Meal, Wole Soyinka Center for Investigating Journalism, Enough is Enough Nigeria, National Consultative Front, Player, and Merely. We thank you all for coming. We hope that the conversations will continue and the photography also will continue. Refreshment is at the back. Please avail yourselves of a drink and something to buy. On behalf of everybody, including the author of the book being presented today, Mr. Chido Onuma, I am Nike Ade from Treasure.